Chapter 1058. A dumb look. The entire square occupied a very large area, but now it was still full of people who came to register. I who couldn't help being surprised, although I knew that the people who participated in the examination of the Miracle Healer Academy every year are young boys and girls with excellent talents. I didn't expect that there would be so many. The admission requirement of the Miracle Healer Academy was that the age must be under 30. This was because martial artists under 30 had many potentials and talents that could be tapped and shaped. In the Miluo continent, a world where most people cultivated, the average age of martial artists was more than 70 or 80 years old. It was conceivable that 30 years old was still a youthful age. However, the boys and girls who had come to apply for Miracle Healer Academy looked only 20 years old, but most of them had reached the Meridian stage. Some had even reached the Gold Core stage, early stage. According to Little Egg's investigation results, among them, there were only about 4 people with dual spiritual roots, which was enough to see how talented these people were. The way to register for the entrance exam was very simple. As long as the person had a recommendation letter and his spiritual root had been verified in the small room on the left side, the registration was considered successful. Hashi bid farewell to Bai Hu and others. Then she walked directly to the small room, waiting in line to receive the inscribed jade slip. The long line was full of men and women. Many people couldn't help but cast their eyes on Hashi. Among these martial artists who participated in the assessment, there were also very few at the foundation establishment stage. However, it was really rare for the foundation establishment stage martial artists to look good like Hashi. Although most people still cast contemptuous glances at her, there were also many young girls being moved by her outstanding face. Look, that young man looks really handsome. Even the most beautiful man, Mr. Jiang, in our Linue city can't be compared with him. What's the use of handsome? He is just at the foundation establishment stage. He actually dares to come to receive the inscribed jade slip. Does he really think he can win? He is probably inexperienced who wants to open his eyes. Open his eyes? Is he stupid? Miracle Healer Academy's assessment is very dangerous. Isn't he afraid of dying here? Hashi naturally heard these people's comments, but she had long been used to it, so she would take these words to her heart. Suddenly, she felt a scrutinizing gaze on her body, which made her slightly stunned. When she looked back, she saw a young man was looking at her from a distance of 3 people. The man seemed to be in his early 20s, but he had a baby face and 2 deep dimples when he laughed. The pair of eyes seemed to be half open, which exuded a mysterious and unfathomable vibe. What surprised Hashi was that this man's cultivation level had actually reached the Gold Core stage, intermediate stage. Among all the martial artists who came to the assessment, he was considered to be the top. Seeing Hashi looking over, the man couldn't help but smile at her. In a moment, the original mysterious vibe disappeared. He showed a dumb look. Hashi twitched her mouth and turned her head. Chapter 1059. Bend the law for personal gain. Hashi frowned and got rid of his palm without doing any obvious move. The man looked at his empty palm with surprise, then his eyes flashed as if he didn't sense Hashi's rejection at all. He smiled and said, "Our meeting is a fate, don't be so aloof. I'm Wei Chengyuan. May I know your name, brother?" Hashi said indifferently, "Compared believing that our meeting is a fate, I rather believe that only someone with ill intention will show kindness for no reason." After speaking, before waiting for Wei Chengyuan to react, she turned around and ignored him. Wei Chengyuan was first startled after hitting a wall, but he wasn't annoyed as he just smiled. TSK, interesting. The more this little guy doesn't care about me, the more I want to provoke him. The queue was moving forward bit by bit. It was mainly to verify the identity information and recommendation letters of the applicants, so it took a little time. Suddenly, an angry voice came from the front of the queue. "I also have a letter of recommendation. Why don't you let me sign up?" This sound was familiar. Hashi looked up and saw Tong Bing's figure as expected. He was arguing with the people at the registration post, but he was ruthlessly kicked to the ground. The people who originally lined up behind Tong Bing burst into commotion and scattered like scared birds. Because the crowd dispersed, Hashi, who was already close to the registration post, naturally stood in the front row. She just happened to see Tong Bing's bruised nose and swollen face with tears. He put her arms around her chest, then she saw a middle-aged man walking out of the registration post, exuding strong spirit pressure. His cultivation base had at least the early stage of the gold core stage, and he looked familiar. Behind this middle-aged man, there was also an arrogant teenager who He recognized at a glance. It was Hu Minghui who bullied Tong Bing at the entrance of Wangyue Pavilion that day. The bruise on Hu Minghui's face still didn't recover. At this time, his face was full of pride and arrogance, and with a vicious resentment. He looked at Tong Bing condescendingly and said, "I said earlier, you're not eligible to apply for the Miracle Healer Academy at all. If you are smart, go back now." Butler Hu glared at his son and said to Tong Bing with a majestic expression, "We have already said that you are not eligible to apply for Miracle Healer Academy, but you still want to cause trouble. We can only teach you a lesson." Tong Bing gritted his teeth and said, "Why am I not eligible to apply for Miracle Healer Academy? You don't have a recommendation letter." Hu Minghui sneered. "Miracle Healer Academy has regulations that you must have a doctor's recommendation letter before you can apply. So, how can you register?" "You bullshit. I obviously gave the recommendation letter. You must have used your power to avenge your personal grievance and destroyed my recommendation letter. Miracle Healer Academy's assessment is obviously the most fair and strict. How can you behave like this?" Tong Bing's remarks were extremely serious, attracting the eyes of all the candidates. They all pointed at Hu Minghui and his father. Butler Hu said with a solemn face, "Miracle Healer Academy has regulations that people who make trouble can be dealt with any means. Even if a person is killed, it is not our responsibility. I wanted to let you go just because you are young and ignorant, but you actually step on my face. Don't blame me for being rude." Chapter 1060, Seek Justice, The crowd didn't expect Butler Hu to attack suddenly. The thunderball was about to envelop Tong Bing. He had no way to resist with his cultivation. But suddenly, an ice wall appeared in front of Tong Bing, completely blocking the thunderball. After the crackling sound, the ice wall shattered, but the thunderball disappeared without a trace. Hu Minghui was still delighted to see the person who displeased him was about to be killed by his father, but someone disrupted it. He said furiously, Who dares to obstruct the Academy's affairs? Do you still want to participate in the assessment?" In the crowd, a beautiful young man walked out slowly. His eyebrows were picturesque, his skin was like snow, and the slender figure looked like a work of art carved from ice jade in the sun. It was enchanting by just taking a look. The young man's cultivation was obviously only at the foundation establishment stage, but under the gaze of Hu Minghui and Butler Hu, he seemed to be completely fearless. He said faintly, "When does seeking justice for himself become causing troubles? You even dare to threaten the candidates not being able to participate in the assessment? Is Miracle Healer Academy run by your Hu family?" As soon as this remark came out, everyone present cast contemptuous glances at Hu Minghui and his father. After all, Hu Minghui and Butler Hu were just two servants of the outer courtyard of Miracle Healer Academy. The people who signed up for the assessment on the spot were the talented children of various families. They were all pampered in their families. When did their future be in the hands of only two servants? Wasn't this funny? Butler Hu's face changed slightly, and he glared at his nonsense son. Then he calmed down and said, Mister, you can't simply talk nonsense. I just act according to the rules of the Academy. How can it be considered a threat? This student does not have a letter of recommendation. How can we break the rule for him?" Before He had time to speak, Hu Minghui suddenly said angrily, "I know you and the others helped the bastard back at the Wangyue Pavilion." With that, he said hatefully toward Butler Hu, "Father, they beat me seriously a few days ago. You must seek justice for me." Butler Hu's face was cold when he heard the words. He really wanted to split his brain to see if his brain was made of tofu. If Hu Minghui didn't mention, he could still use his power to say that there was a problem with his recommendation letter. Now that he shouted out loud in the public, if he still dared to play trick, wouldn't it prove his crime of using his authority on personal grievances? Butler Hu took a deep breath, smiled at He and said without a smile, Mister, you are just at the foundation establishment stage, but your temper is really something. However, Mr. may not be aware of Miracle Healer Academy's assessment. Although there is no threshold for the level of cultivation, people with poor strength entering the final assessment field will not just suffer some minor external injuries. You and student Tong Bing student should come again next time. She raised her eyebrows and sneered. Butler Hu, as the butler of Miracle Healer Academy's outer courtyard, you really have huge power. But does Miracle Healer Academy have regulations saying that the foundation establishment stage cannot register? Chapter 1061. Recommendation letter. Then he sneered and said, since you insist, do as you please. But in any case, this Tong Bing does not have a letter of recommendation. He definitely can't participate in this assessment. You nonsense. I obviously have a recommendation letter. Tong Bing looked at He with tears, and he said in a trembling voice, Mister, I really have a recommendation letter. I handed it to Butler Hu. They are slandering me. He frowned before she could speak. A smile came from the man beside her. Recommendation letter is just a formality. It is easy to get. Don't cry, young man. Brother can give you one. As soon as the man said this, all eyes immediately fell on him. By hearing the teasing tone, He knew that it was Wei Chengyuan who just talked to her. Seeing He looking over, Wei Chengyuan blinked at her like he was her acquaintance, making He twitch his mouth. Wei Chengyuan took 2 steps forward and threw out a piece of paper. Here, this is the recommendation letter. Just fill in your name on it by yourself. Let Butler Hu verify this letter. This time, he can't really say that you don't have a recommendation letter, right? Tong Bing took the recommendation letter in a daze. He glanced at it, then his eyes suddenly widened in horror. He kept looking up at Wei Chengyuan, then looked down at the recommendation letter in his hand. His body trembled slightly. Butler Hu looked at Wei Chengyuan with surprise and uncertainty on his face. This man looked very strange, but his manner showed like he was someone important. More importantly, Butler Hu couldn't see through this person's cultivation level. Tong Bing tremblingly wrote his name on the recommendation letter, then he handed it to Butler Hu. Minghui's angry eyes burst into flames, and he wished he could tear Tong Bing apart now. Seeing him handing over the recommendation letter, he immediately rushed over and grabbed it in his hand. He sneered, You really think the doctor's recommendation letter is so easy to get? I want to see if it's authentic. Suddenly, his voice stopped abruptly, his eyes almost popped out. Seeing that his son's expression, Butler Hu hurriedly took the recommendation letter in shock. 9th rank doctor. This is the recommendation letter of the 9th rank doctor, Master Mo Xingqian. How is this possible? Wei Chengyuan put his arms around his chest and chuckled softly. What? Miracle Healer Academy has regulations that we can't take the recommendation letter of the 9th rank doctor to participate in the entrance examination? No dash. Butler Hu shook his head quickly and nodded toward Wei Chengyuan. I didn't expect you to be a disciple of Master Mo. Sorry for being disrespectful. Wei Chengyuan smiled and looked at Butler Hu quietly. Butler Hu didn't dare to say more. He hurried back to take the inscribed jade slip and handed it to Tong Bing, He, and Wei Chengyuan. The farce was over completely, but everyone looked at Wei Chengyuan with suspicion. This time, there was no shortage of disciples and children of the major families and sect, but no one recognized this Wei Chengyuan. Chapter 1062. Ignore. After receiving help, Butler Hu glared at him with regret, then he sneered, Why are you in a hurry? Let's not talk about whether they can participate in the first test with their spiritual root qualifications. Even if they pass this test, with just the cultivation of the foundation establishment stage, aren't they just looking for death? Minghui was taken aback, then he was a little excited. Father, do you mean to do tricks in the assessment? Is that necessary? The assessment is originally a competition between the weak and the strong. Even if we don't do anything, they will just be bullied by others. Isn't that better? When Minghui heard the words, the gloom on his face disappeared. He said excitedly, Father is really smart. Now I'm still afraid that Tong Bing will not be able to participate in the assessment. When he enters the assessment, Without the help of those gold core stage friends, let's see what can he do. Hashi was playing with the inscribed jade slip at hand. This inscribed jade slip was now just a blank inscribed jade slip with the ranking order, but as the assessment progresses, all the information will be recorded in it. After passing the spiritual root inspection, the student's information would be recorded in the inscribed jade slip. After recording, the information in it could no longer be changed. In the end, 60% of the student's scores were judged based on the information recorded in this inscribed jade slip. Hashi was planning to perform spiritual root verification, then Wei Chengyuan and Tong Bing followed suit. Wei Chengyuan wanted to put his arm around Hashi's shoulder like a buddy, then he said, "Hey, little brother, why do you ignore me after receiving my help? I just helped your friend. Can't you say thank you?" It's fine if you don't thank me, but at least tell me your name." Hashi squinted and glared at Wei Chengyuan's hand. Wei Chengyuan's action became stiff. He coughed twice and obediently retracted his hand. Tong Bing, who was following Wei Chengyuan, blushed and whispered, No. I'm not Senior's friend, no. I'm not worthy to be a Senior's friend. I was just hired by Senior as his guide 2 days ago. When Hu Minghui attacked me, it was Senior who saved me." Seeing that he was about to cry, Hashi's eyes trembled. She couldn't help shaking her head before taking out a bottle of medicinal pills and giving it to him. "How are your injuries?" This 17-year-old boy looked so immature, making her think of Shao Qi, so she naturally showed him a little more care. Tong Bing was grateful. He took the medicinal pills with a shaking hand, and he kept saying thank you. Only when he poured out medicinal pills to swallow, Wei Chengyuan suddenly reached out, snatched the bottle from his hand, put it on the tip of his nose and smelled it. The next moment he yelled, "Damn, the best meridian cleansing pill, you just a bottle to him? Brother, how can you be so generous? I can only buy 3 after queuing up at the Qingxia sect shop for half a month." Tong Bing's face was flushed. He didn't know whether he should swallow the medicinal pills. Chapter 1063. Passed the inspection before Hashi received it. Wei Chengyuan had already kept the medicine bottle away shamelessly and said with a smile, "Since you guys don't want this best quality pills, then give them to me. I'm welcome to take them." Hashi glared at him and didn't bother him. At this moment, it was Hashi's turn to inspect the spiritual root, so she hurriedly walked into the hut. Testing the spiritual root was only the first step in the assessment of Miracle Healer Academy. It was just a widespread screening process. Hashi originally thought that Miracle Healer Academy would not take it seriously, but when she walked into the cabin and saw an old man with a gray beard sitting on the side, she couldn't help but be surprised. This old man turned out to be at the nascent soul stage, and it was even the intermediate stage. The aura around him was neat, and his clothes were normal. If Hashi didn't have little egg, she wouldn't be able to see the old man's true cultivation. When the old man saw Hashi, he looked at her from her toes to her head, then he pointed to the side and said, "Go in for the test." The old man pointed to a very small array, which could only accommodate 3 to 5 people standing. The rune of this formation was very peculiar. Even though Hashi had some understanding of arrays, she still couldn't understand it at all. What surprised Hashi was that the energy crystal stone placed in every corner of the formation was the extremely rare 6th grade crystal stones. Is this Miracle Healer Academy too rich? Or is this spiritual root verification very important to Miracle Healer Academy? Logically, Miracle Healer Academy is different from the normal clans and big families. There are various martial artists who cultivate different techniques, so the spiritual root qualification shouldn't be the most important for them. Why is it necessary to do such a test? Could it be that this array could identify some secrets that martial artists can't see through? At this moment, Hashi finally felt a sense of tension in her heart. She had too many secrets in her body like the Sumeru Void Ring and Little Egg. Various thoughts flashed in her mind, but Hashi's face did not show any emotion. She quickly entered the array. Under the cover of Little Egg, the 2 spiritual powers of water and fire in her body were running. Soon, pure blue and red light appeared on the array. The old man glanced at her in surprise, and his eyes turned a little solemn. He said solemnly, the dual spiritual roots of fire and water. You have passed the verification. Heshi breathed a sigh of relief. Just as she was about to leave, she heard the old man sigh in a low voice. Such a good qualification, you are just too eager for quick success and short gains. If you come here in a few years, you will at least have some self-protection in the assessment. Heshi paused slightly, then she walked out of the hut with a smile. Wei Qingyuan and Tong Bing tested their spiritual roots after Heshi. All three of them finished the test and waited for the results of the assessment. Wei Qingyuan held a weed in his mouth and asked Heshi with a grin, "Hey, brother, how is your result?" "Let me tell you, I have the dual mutated sky spiritual root of wind and thunder. You don't have to be worried because you have me protecting you in the academy." Tong Bing covered his mouth and exclaimed. He looked at Wei Qingyuan with admiration. "Brother Wei, you are so amazing. You actually have dual sky spiritual root. This is really 1 in a million. Chapter 1064. Really interesting. Heshi was so annoyed by this guy until she heard the discussion from a few martial artists not far away. "Hey, haven't you heard that the girl who just entered, her spiritual root test result is the dual sky spiritual root of gold and earth? This is the sky spiritual root of pure 5 elements. It hasn't appeared in the assessment of Miracle Healer Academy for many years." "I know that girl. She is the eldest lady of Shueyu sect. I heard that she is only 19 years old this year, but she has already broken through the gold core stage. Her talent is even close to Feng Lianying? I remember Feng Lianying also has the dual sky spiritual root of water and fire, right? Pui, Feng Lianying, that shameless woman, did such a shameful thing. The entire Miluo continent has known about it. How can she be compared with the miss of the Shueyu sect?" "That's right, such a disgusting woman. She is lucky for not being expelled from academy. What's more, I heard that her so-called sky spiritual root of the 5 elements is actually changed forcibly by her master's medicine. It can't be compared with the real dual sky spiritual root of the 5 elements. Hee, see that woman wearing Feng family costumes over there? It is Feng Yunqing. I heard that Feng family sent her to the Miracle Healer Academy to replace Feng Lianying. Otherwise, if the Feng family doesn't have a place in the Miracle Healer Academy, the family will just suffer in Miluo continent." "Really?" Someone couldn't help but exclaimed, "Miracle Healer Academy is just an academy after all. Do these major families still have to give face to the academy? You don't even know this? Miracle Healer City and Miracle Healer Academy have the most scared status in Miluo continent. Let alone these family sects, even the Doctors Association dare not say that they have a say in Miracle Healer Academy." The strength of Miracle Healer Academy made those who signed up even more excited. As long as they could pass the assessment and enter the academy, their classmates all had huge family backgrounds and strength. They couldn't help but yearn for it. When Wei Qingyuan saw Heshi listening to other people's discussions in a daze, he couldn't help but approach her with a smile. "As far as I know, there isn't a single martial artist of the foundation establishment stage being admitted to the Miracle Healer Academy in hundreds of years. Although I hope to see you two in the academy, the chances of you two passing the assessment are unlikely to be great." Tong Bing immediately said dejectedly. He said in a low voice, "My spiritual root test result is the dual spiritual root of wind and water, and my spiritual root is also a little impure. Maybe I can't even pass the first assessment. It would be nice if I have the talent like you, Brother Wei." Wei Qingyuan smiled and did not speak, but his deep gaze stared at Heshi imperceptibly. Heshi hadn't spoken yet, then there was a clamor in the distance. "The results of the first round of screening have been announced." As soon as this word came out, everyone swarmed in the direction where the sound came from. Just after Heshi took one step, she stopped, turned around and said faintly, "There hasn't been one in hundreds of years? But soon you will see one." Wei Qingyuan was taken aback. When he realized what Heshi's words meant, he burst into laughter. His eyes were full of interest. "Interesting. Really interesting. I want to see why he is so confident." Chapter 1065. Cheating. Before the three of them walked into the bulletin board, they heard a wailing sound from the crowd. "How come? So many people signed up, and in the end less than 100 people were admitted. This is only the first round. Isn't it too harsh? I'm a single mutated spiritual root of Earth, how could I be screened out? Che, the first round of screening does not only look at spiritual root qualifications, but also your muscles, bones, cultivation, and potential. No matter how good your qualifications are, if your cultivation base is not enough and your potential is too bad, of course you will be screened out. I heard that last year's assessment, only 8 people were admitted at the end. There were nearly 1,000 people who applied for the assessment at that time. How many of these 96 people will be able to stay in the end? When the trio squeezed into the crowd and glanced, not surprisingly, He saw her name, Shiyu, at the end of the list. Wei Qingyuan's name was 6th from the top. As soon as he saw it, he bit the weed and smiled. I actually only ranked 6th in the spiritual root qualification test. Tiske, who is in front of me? Suddenly, someone exclaimed, how come there are people of the foundation establishment stage on the list? That's right. Didn't it mean that it's not just about the assessment of spiritual root? If you count the cultivation base, how can the people of the foundation establishment stage be on the list? I remember that there hasn't been a foundation establishment stage martial artist in the first round of screening for decades, right? Is this person a relative of the academy master? Is he cheating? The crowd suddenly burst commotion, especially many people who failed were filled with outrage. They wanted an explanation from the academy. Because there was too much noise, a boy in green clothes slowly walked out of the hut, glanced around with a fierce gaze and said coldly, Shiyu, dual sky spiritual root of water and fire. His bone and meridians are 17 years old. The peak of the foundation establishment stage. Her selection is beyond doubt. If you have any objections, I don't mind reporting it to the upper level of the academy. The boy in green clothes paused and continued, since you are so dissatisfied with the academy's verdict, then you should not participate in the academy's assessment anymore. As soon as this remark came out, the audience fell into a weird silence. No one dared to say more. Seeing that there was no objection, the boy in green clothes said indifferently, all the candidates who fail the screening, please return your inscribed jade slip into the spiritual root inspection hut. We will register your information. If you want to participate again in the assessment next year, you don't need to provide a recommendation letter. After speaking, the boy in green clothes just walked into the hut. After the crowd was silent for a while, someone suddenly murmured to break the calm, Shiyu. Shiyu? Why is this name so familiar? Could it be the young master of the Shengde Hall? Shengde Hall? Is the Shengde Hall that sells the best quality pills? If it is him, then it's no wonder he can be so powerful. I heard that some of the best quality pills sold by Shengde Hall can increase one's cultivation in a short period of time and even improve their aptitude. He must have taken those medicinal pills, that's why he is so powerful, right? So what if he took the medicinal pills with the foundation establishment stage? He will definitely die miserably when he enters the 2nd or 3rd rounds of assessment. At this time, Wei Qingyuan's surprised gaze fell on He. He said after a long while, so you are Shiyu? Chapter 1066. Already left. Wei Qingyuan was stunned for a moment, then his baby face collapsed as he said depressingly, well, I even boast of my mutated dual sky spiritual root in front of you. I didn't expect that you actually have a dual 5 elements sky spiritual root. You're really too bad. When I was bragging just now, you must be laughing behind my back. He was amused by this guy. As she was about to speak, she saw Tong Bing's tearful appearance, and she suddenly reacted. Only one foundation establishment stage passed the screening, which naturally meant that Tong Bing had failed. Realizing that He was watching him, Tong Bing smiled reluctantly and said, Mr. Shi, you are so amazing. I didn't expect you to be a dual sky spiritual root. No wonder you can pass the screening. I actually know that I can't pass the assessment, but I just want to try it. But, sure enough, it is impossible for someone like me to enter Miracle Healer Academy. What He was not good at comforting people. She just said indifferently, your spiritual power fluctuations are full of peaceful vitality, So you are a very suitable person to become a doctor. You failed this year, but you can wait next year or the year after. As long as you break through to the meridian stage, your chances of passing the assessment will increase a lot. There is no need to rush for quick success. Tong Bing's eyes were red, and he nodded quickly. He said softly, Then I will return the inscribed jade slip first. Sorry, Brother Wei, I wasted your recommendation letter. Wei Chengyuan interrupted him nonchalantly. It's just a piece of torn paper. It's nothing. What's more, now that you registered once, you can participate directly in the future, which is not a waste. Shiyu, are I right? Tong Bing bit his lip, bowed to Heshi and Wei Chengyuan again, said, Thank you, in a low voice, then he turned and ran toward the hut. The end of the spiritual root test meant that the first day of assessment was also over. Heshi originally planned to wait for Tong Bing to leave the examination room together. After all, Hu Minghui and his son were still nearby. The mysterious Wei Chengyuan, whose intention was unclear, stayed with Heshi. However, half an hour passed, the martial artists who returned the inscribed jade slips all came out one after another and left, but Tong Bing never showed up. Even in the end, the people on the square were almost gone, and the academy was preparing to cover the square with enchantment again, but Heshi never saw Tong Bing. The boy in green clothes came out from the hut. Seeing that Heshi and Wei Chengyuan had not left, he came over in surprise. The first day of assessment is over, you can leave. Heshi frowned, but she still asked about Tong Bing's whereabouts. The boy in green clothes said, It turns out that you are the friends of that little guy. A teacher in the college asked him to help with some chores. He has already left after he finished them. He actually asked a manservant to notify you, but I guess that manservant has forgotten it. With that, the boy in green clothes frowned and complained, These people are really getting less and less focused. Sorry for letting you wait for so long. Heshi shook her head, smiled faintly, and bowed to the boy in green clothes before leaving. Wei Chengyuan raised his eyebrows, glanced at the boy in green clothes meaningfully, and left as well. He kept up with Heshi's pace and yelled, Shiyu, don't go so fast. Where do you live? How about I move to stay in the same inn as you for these few days? Chapter 1067. Not human in the hut, the old man in charge of testing the spiritual root raised his head, and his sleepy eyes flickered at this moment. How? Did those people have any doubt? The boy in green clothes thought for a moment before he said, Shouldn't be. I can see that they are just getting acquainted with that Tong Bing, and they don't have a deep friendship. They are just asking out of friendship. As for that Wei Chengyuan, I don't know who is this person, but I always feel that he is not simple. The old man shook his head and said, Don't worry about him, as long as they don't doubt it. You can take those people in the hut back first. As he said, he smiled, showing the deep wrinkles on his face. This year's harvest seems to be pretty good. This is already the third one. Now the above should be satisfied. Heshi, who walked out of the square, suddenly turned his head, looking deep into the direction of the square. There was gradually being enveloped by a barrier, and the air was like a layer of mist, making people no longer able to see the scene inside. Bai Hu, Qing Wan and Gu Lufeng, who were waiting outside, all ran over at this time, and they asked about Heshi's assessment results. After asking for a long time and seeing Heshi didn't speak, Bai Hu couldn't help but nervously say, Young master, what's the matter? Didn't you pass the first round of assessment? That's fine, let's think of another way. Wei Chengyuan on the side was looking up at the martial artists of the 3 gold core stages. It was clear that Shiyu's cultivation base was so much lower than them, but they were so submissive to her. TSK, Shiyu really isn't simple. Hearing Bai Hu's words, Wei Chengyuan couldn't help but sigh. Don't worry about it, Shiyu is the only foundation establishment stage martial artist who passed the first round of assessment. Bai Hu breathed a sigh of relief when he heard the words. Yeah, make impossible possible, this is the style of princess. However, Bai Hu turned his eyes on Wei Chengyuan with hostility. Who are you? Who's this? Why is he so close to princess? Wei Chengyuan laughed, did not answer Bai Hu's words, but looked at Heshi. Shiyu, then we will see you in the second assessment? Hope there is a chance to become your classmate. After speaking, Wei Chengyuan left without waiting for Bai Hu to speak. Bai Hu let out a tisk. Looking at his handsome back, he couldn't help but roast. Flower peacock. Gu Lufeng asked He in a low voice. Xiu, what's wrong? Nothing. He shook her head, then she said something that didn't make sense. Tong Bing was not selected. After that, she stopped looking in the direction of the square before walking toward the Wangyue pavilion. Gu Lufeng, who was left behind, frowned slightly. What did Xiu mean? Bai Hu regretfully shook his head and said, Tong Bing really did not pass the screening. But this is normal. He is only at the foundation establishment stage. If things happen, he will be killed in the assessment. It would be better to train for a few years before trying. Gu Lufeng smiled and said, What is foundation establishment stage? Don't forget, our Xiyu is also the foundation establishment stage. Bai Hu suddenly said exaggeratedly, Can she be compared? Our princess is not a human being, she is the devil herself. Comparing her to ordinary people, isn't it a joke? Gu Lufeng was choked by Bai Hu's words, then he looked at He and couldn't help but sigh. Is she really only at the foundation establishment stage? Chapter 1068, Student Council. But at this time, a building to the south was still brightly lit, and occasionally indistinct figures were walking around. This was the area where the Miracle Healer Academy's Student Council was located. The Academy was an organization completely managed by the students of Miracle Healer Academy. It had great power in the Miracle Healer Academy, and it was also a bridge for the reconciliation of contradictions and connections between the Academy and the students. This time the Miracle Healer Academy entrance assessment, except for the teachers who were specifically responsible for the assessment and supervision, other related matters were all taken care of by the Student Council. On the top floor of the building where the Student Council was located, there was a private room that belonged to the president, vice presidents, and the key members of the Student Council. The decoration inside was elegant and luxurious. At this time, the sky was dim, but the crystal stone shone in the room, which reflected the antique style of the painted wall. At this time, two women were sitting in this elegant room. If He were here, she would be able to recognize these two acquaintances, Lu Zhishi and Ren Shuling, who had become enemies with her in Yangon City. At this time, Ren Shuling was burning a recording talisman, watching the handsome figure of a young man in the talisman with flushing cheeks. However, Lu Zhishi was staring at a medicinal pill as if there was a depression and sorrow that couldn't be solved. Suddenly, the door gently pushed open, and a tall young man strode in. This man seemed to be only 18 years old. He had handsome facial features, a pair of sword eyebrows, and deep and shining eyes. It could be seen that he was a determined teenager. As soon as Ren Shuling saw the man entering, she immediately put away the recording talisman she was watching, but her eyes were shy of joy. Brother Kai Yu, why are you here? Kai Yu was the vice president of the Student Council and the top in the entrance assessment 5 years ago. He became the vice president in these 5 years. Kai Yu gently touched Ren Shuling's head, looking at her as if he was looking at a naughty little sister. What does Shuling mean? Can I come? Ren Shuling blushed and lowered her head shyly, saying like a mosquito, No, I'm happy that you are here. However, Kai Yu did not hear her. Instead, she walked to Lu Zhishi's side a few steps, and his voice was unconsciously low and soft. Zhishi, this is the list of participants who participated in the Miracle Healer Academy assessment this time and their corresponding examiners. If there are no problems, I will submit the list to the elders. The formal assessment will be carried out the day after tomorrow. All students participating in the assessment of Miracle Healer Academy would be assigned with an examiner during the evaluation period. These examiners were sometimes teachers of the academy and sometimes key members of the Student Council. This year, it happened to be the Student Councils to supervise the assessment. Therefore, how much power did the Student Council have that allowed them to supervise the assessment? Lu Zhishi recovered, put the medicinal pill into the storage device, smiled and took the list from Kai Yu. Kai Yu stood aside, staring blankly at the beautiful face of the young girl. His handsome face flushed slightly. Chapter 1069. Is there any problem? Kai Yu's heart was pounding. His eyes were full of infatuation and inferiority complex. Before entering Miracle Healer Academy, Caillou always felt that he had an awe-inspiring innate talent, and he was superior. However, since he met Lu Jishi, he had never had the pride he once had. Their president was really good, so good that he felt ashamed. He couldn't wait to give the best in the world to her. Lu Jishi didn't notice Caillou's thoughts. She just carefully looked at the information of everyone on the list. Miss Han Qianer of Shuiyu Sect, Feng Yunqin of Feng Family, Xia Qian of Qixing Palace. These were all famous among the students who applied for this year's assessment, but Lu Jishi wasn't moved at all. Caillou didn't pay attention to these boys and girls at all. In Caillou's mind, these geniuses praised by outsiders could not be compared with his president. However, Lu Jishi, whose expression had been calm, suddenly looked shocked when seeing the last name on the list. She couldn't help exclaiming, "Shiyu? Why is he here?" Caillou suddenly woke up from the confusion of peeping at Lu Jishi, and he stepped forward and said, "What's wrong? Is there anything wrong?" He was about to take the inscribed jade slip in Lu Jishi's hand and take a look, but Ren Shuling moved faster than him. When her divine sense probed into the inscribed jade slip and saw the name and introduction of Shiyu, as well as the introduction of the water and fire dual sky spiritual root, she suddenly said furiously, "This bitch dares to come here. She even dares to take the assessment?" Seeing Lu Jishi's unsightly expression, Caillou quickly asked, "Jishi, what's wrong? Is there anything wrong with this Shiyu?" Lu Jishi bit her lower lip and shook her head eagerly. "No, just happened to know him. How could this be fine?" Before Lu Jishi finished speaking, she was interrupted by Ren Shuling, who was anxious on the side. "Brother Caillou, I tell you, this bitch named Shiyu is simply too much. In Yangon City, she not only provoked and bullied senior sister, used her name to hype up her own reputation, and she even used despicable means to grab the credit of senior sister. She made everyone in Yangon City laugh at me and senior sister. When I think of this bitch, I'm still so angry that I can't fall asleep." When Caillou heard Ren Shuling's words, his face suddenly turned gloomy, and the aura of the peak of gold core stage on his body naturally spread out. "What is going on? Can you tell me clearly? Someone dared to bully Jishi and rob her of her credit? He is simply tired of living." Ren Shuling immediately talked about what happened in Yangon City with some additional untrue facts. The more she said, the more Caillou's face became gloomy. The coldness in his eyes even made Ren Shuling feel scared. However, even though Ren Shuling was a little afraid of the strange brother Caillou, she had more resentment toward Shiyu. She kept cursing her non-stop. "That's it. The bitch Shiyu used despicable means to disturb the mind of senior sister, and she even stole senior sister's treatment plan. In the end, she even snatched senior sister's credit and the divine soul jade. It's a pity that senior sister and I just wanted to help with goodwill, but Shiyu made us be hated by the people of the Yangon City." Chapter 1070. What's wrong? Caillou's fists on both sides of his body were clenched tight. He said with a chilling tone, "How is it just hateful? He simply deserves death." Lu Jishi shook her head and said in disapproval, "Shuling, don't talk nonsense. Mr. Shi just did what he thought was right. At least on the surface, we couldn't pick out any mistakes in his behavior." As she said, she set her eyes on Caillou and whispered lonely, "Caillou, don't listen to Shuling's nonsense. It's all a misunderstanding. Maybe I'm really inferior to others. Okay, there is no problem on this list. Do you need me to report to the elders now?" Ren Shuling saw that Lu Jishi had spoken up for Shiyu in this way. She protested furiously, "Sister, are you stupid? How can you just let him go? You kindly let him go, but did he let you go in Yangon City? What's more, if he passes the examination, who knows how will he slander you in this academy? Besides, did you forget? The bitch Shiyu was obviously shameless, and he even made a blacklist for Shengde Hall, so that those people turn against our doctors' association. How can we let such a cruel person step into the Miracle Healer Academy? I'll go to Elder Wang and ask him to kick the Shiyu out of the assessment list. A person like him wants to get into the Miracle Healer Academy? Simply dreaming." "Xueling, come back," Lu Jishi said solemnly, This list has already been announced on the square. If you ask someone to remove Shiyu's name on the list, what would the other martial artists who participated in the assessment think? Our student council is the most fair and strict organization in the academy. How can we use our power for private revenge? Okay, this matter ends here. With that, she stood up and took the list in Renshuling's hand. However, Caillou moved faster than her, grabbing the inscribed jade slip, and smiled gently. Jishi, I suddenly remembered that there are some things wrong with this list. Let me amend it before letting you review. Lu Jishi's eyes flashed, and her voice was gentle and soft. What's wrong? Caillou's voice couldn't help but soften a bit as if he was afraid of polluting her. No, I just think I haven't participated in the invigilation for a long time, so I will replace Zhang Chong with me this time. Ren Shuling immediately clapped his hands and laughed. Brother Caillou is really smart. Yes, instead of removing his name, it is better to let that bitch suffer in the assessment. Anyway, the casualty rate is high in every year assessment. He only has the foundation establishment stage. He will definitely suffer by then. Lu Jishi was in hesitation. Her face was full of disapproval and intolerance. Caillou quickly interrupted her and laughed. Jishi, don't worry about it. I will take care of this. There are some dirty people and things that are not understandable by a kind-hearted person like Jishi, but you can rest assured, I will never let them hurt you again. After speaking, he patted the excited Ren Shuling's head and walked out of the private room. Ren Shuling was so excited. She couldn't wait to know the end of Shiyu. With that thought in mind, she also followed out. Chapter 1071. Should I count interest? When only Lu Jishi was left in the elegant room, she sneered slightly, and a strange light flashed in her eyes. But the change in expression was only a moment, and soon her face was covered with a slight sadness and loneliness. After Caillou left the private room, he was about to close the door. When he turned around and saw Lu Jishi's sad and lonely expression through the door, he suddenly felt sorry for her. Our president has always been a godlike existence. In the entire Miracle Healer Academy, no one dares to disrespect and no one doesn't admire her. Unexpectedly, she was bullied by a guy from the foundation establishment stage. No wonder Lu Jishi has been depressed since she came back last time. The gentle and noble smile that had always been on her face has disappeared. It turned out that she was wronged like that outside. When Caillou thought of this, he couldn't help clenching his fists. I'm really useless. Never mind if I'm not as outstanding as our president, knowing that our president is so kind and gentle, but I can't even protect her from being harmed. What is the meaning of me being the vice president? Shiyu? Since you dare to bully our president, no matter who you are, I will teach you a bloody lesson. The third day was the real first round of the Miracle Healer Academy entrance assessment. Hashi arrived at the assessment square early, but even though she came here early, she found that almost 100 martial artists who passed the spiritual root test were waiting here early. As soon as Wei Qingyuan saw Hashi, he leaned in very naturally and put his arm around her shoulder. Xiao Yuer, how do you feel? The formal assessment will begin today. You won't be nervous and didn't sleep last night, right? Hashi stretched out her hand and flicked away his arm lightly. She didn't seem to do anything, but Wei Qingyuan felt his arm numb. He screamed and backed a few steps. Wei Qingyuan said with a bitter face, Brother, we have faced difficulties together the day before yesterday. You don't have to be cruel to brother, right? Hashi sneered and said, I don't know if we have faced difficulties together, but I remember clearly that you stole elixir from me. Thank you, 9 superb meridian cleansing pills, 900,000 crystals. Wei Qingyuan's face was stiff. His arm that was about to put around Hashi's shoulder was kept back after hearing Hashi's cold words. You have owed me 900,000 crystals for 2 days, should I count interest as well? Wei Qingyuan completely wilted. He ran far away from her with a sullen expression. The resentment he felt was evident, but he didn't dare to get close to Hashi again, for fear that this beautiful young boy would settle accounts with him again. He obviously runs Shengda Hall. All the best quality pills belong to him. Can't you just give a few to me? Do you need to be so stingy? Wei Qingyuan neglected selectively at this time. He had tens of thousands of crystal stones in his family. 900,000 crystals were less than a fraction, but he was stingy that he didn't want to pay the money. Soon, the first round of assessment was about to begin. Before that, a thin elder walked to the square and said some meaningless nonsense. The content was nothing more than promoting the academy mission of the Miracle Healer Academy and emphasizing fairness and justice in assessments. What shocked Hashi was that this elder, who seemed to be smiling but lazy, turned out to be a master of the nascent soul later stage. Chapter 1072. Disbelief. Any elder of the Miracle Healer Academy is at the nascent soul stage level. It really deserves to be the most mysterious and most sought-after place in the Miluo continent. After the elder's nonsense was finished, the boy in green clothes who appeared yesterday came forward, cleared his throat and said, "The first round of assessment will be completed by a martial artist and an invigilator. Now I will announce an invigilator for everyone present. The first invigilator, Caillou." As soon as the boy in green clothes finished reading, a handsome and upright young man came up from the hazy enchantment behind. As soon as this person appeared, the whole venue suddenly boiled up. Caillou. I didn't expect it to be Vice President Caillou. Vice President Caillou was at the top of the freshman assessment 5 years ago. After entering the academy, he participated in the first major competition and got top 5 results. He became the vice president of the Academy Student Council in just 3 years. Even in Miracle Healer Academy, he is a legend that everyone pursues. I heard that President Caillou has not been an invigilator for several years. I didn't expect him to come this year. Oh, who do you think will become Vice President Caillou's examinee? If it was me, I will be so happy that I would faint. The boy in green clothes looked at Caillou with admiration and envy, then he looked at the examinees and said in a deep voice, "The examinee that Caillou is supervising is Shiyu." As soon as the boy in green clothes finished speaking, almost everyone turned their eyes on Hashi, with jealousy, envy, disdain, and resentment in their eyes. There were only 100 people here, and the only foundation establishment stage was Hashi. What's more, Hashi's appearance was so outstanding and her identity was very special. Of course, no one of the examinees present did not know him. Someone couldn't help but sighed. How could it be Shiyu? He is just a waste at the foundation establishment stage. He may not even pass the first level. Let Vice President Caillou supervise him is just an insult to him. Hashi didn't care about everyone's comments. She walked forward slowly and handed the inscribed jade slip to Caillou. Caillou didn't find Shiyu in the crowd at the beginning. After all, the pictures recorded in the inscribed jade slip were not clear. He was extremely disgusted with this person in his heart, and he was not interested in taking a second look at her at all. But when Shiyu walked out of the crowd, he realized that this was a teenager with a better appearance than Lu Jishi. The bright phoenix eyes were calm, and the snow-white skin was shining in the sun. When the young man walked up slowly, everything behind him seemed to be a setting. The surrounding plants and wind seemed to stop, making people uncontrollable cast their eyes on him. Caillou opened his eyes slightly and looked at this young man in disbelief. He was actually the cruel, sinister, and shameless bitch in Ren Shuiling's words. If he hadn't known the identity of this young man beforehand, he couldn't help but praise the young man's excellence. Not only because of the outstanding and peerless appearance of the young man, but also because of the loftiness radiated from the inside out on him. Miracle Healer Academy's position in Miluo continent was aloof. No matter how calm the examinees were, they would still feel nervous in their hearts. Just like the eldest lady of Shueyu sect not far away and Feng Yunqin of the Feng family, each of them looked calm, but their eyes fluctuated slightly and their muscles were tense, which were all signs of tension. Chapter 1073. Written Assessment. But the young man in front of him, his squinted phoenix eyes and calm expression, was like having a stroll in his own courtyard. He didn't have a sense of nervousness at all. However, the slight feeling of favor for this young man that had just aroused in Caillou's mind immediately turned into disgust when he thought of the harm he had caused to his president. He said coldly, "Come with me. I will take you to the first assessment room." Heshi raised her eyebrows slightly. There was a slight surprise in her mind. At that moment, she felt a trace of hostility from this person or even a killing intent with disgust. I have never seen him or met him before, right? Judging from Caillou's expression just now, he obviously doesn't know me either. Then this hostility is a bit interesting. Heshi's mouth twitched slightly and she followed Caillou. The first assessment was in the academy, but because Heshi and others did not have the pass-inscribed jade slip, the academy opened up several special teleportation arrays to send these candidates to designated places to take the assessment. The way to activate the teleportation array was to use the inscribed jade slip in their hands. The light of the teleportation array flashed, and Heshi quickly entered a huge room. But this room was very strange. The entire room was divided into more than 100 small rooms. Each room was separated by a transparent spiritual power shield. There was only one table and 2 chairs in the small room. Heshi sat down at the table. Soon, she felt Caillou's cold aura behind her as well as the cold eyes staring at her back. But what kind of person was Heshi? Not to mention her profession, which was good at disguising in her previous life, with her strong mental ability, she was accustomed to being watched in this Miluo continent. Caillou's hostile gaze did not bother her at all. After Heshi sat down, she realized that when she looked up, she could see other candidates appearing in the rooms one after another, and she could faintly hear their voices. When she looked at the table, the surrounding scenes turned blur. So this spiritual power shield is to prevent cheating? They are really advanced. However, to prevent cheating? Does that mean that this time the first level assessment of Miracle Healer Academy is a written test? The things that happened next quickly confirmed Heshi's guess. An old man in his early 50s, wearing a light blue gown and a scholar hat, appeared. His eyes exuded a feeling of spring breeze. As soon as the old man appeared, the noisy examinees in the room all quieted down. Heshi frowned again. It's another nascent soul stage? How many mentors or elders of nascent soul stage are there in Miracle Healer Academy? At this ratio, even if all the nascent soul stage masters of every family and sect in the Miluo continent add up, it is still less than the nascent soul stage master here, right? The old man smiled slightly. His deep voice filled the rooms. I'm the chief invigilator for the first round of the entrance assessment of the Miracle Healer Academy. Now I will announce that the content of the first round assessment is the written assessment. As soon as this statement was made, everyone present couldn't help but widen their eyes. Some were surprised, some panicked, and some were astonished. Heshi heard a young boy not far away said in joy, "The first round is actually a written assessment. The entrance assessment of Miracle Healer Academy has had the written assessment for 2 years. Our luck is really great." Chapter 1074, The Start of Assessment, Idiot. The other young man beside couldn't help but glare at him. He said annoyingly, "Do you think it's easy to pass the written assessment? Do you think you are very fortunate?" "Why it isn't?" The young man was unconvinced. "At least the written assessment is safe. Do you know that the first round of written assessment usually eliminates 10% or even 20% more people than other assessments? When you are eliminated, let's see if you still feel fortunate." As soon as he said this, the young man suddenly fell silent with a face full of sorrow. They looked back and forth. Many people wanted to cheat, but when they looked at the invigilator sitting behind them, they immediately kept away that little thought. If they failed the exam, at least there would be a chance next year, but if the invigilator found that they had bad conduct, then they wouldn't have a chance to step into the Miracle Healer Academy in their lives. Even those who behave excessively would even be rejected by all major sects and families of Miluo continent. The chief invigilator in front seemed to have not heard the murmurs of the people below, and he smiled slightly. The content of the written assessment includes 30% of physician-related questions and 70% of other related questions. The assessment time is 1 hour. The total number of questions is 1,000. Those who can answer more than 500 correctly will be included in the candidate list for the second assessment. The rest will be eliminated. You must not cheat during the answering process, you must not leave the room early, you must not interfere with other people's answers, offenders. You won't want to know the result. Now, the assessment begins. As soon as the invigilator spoke, he flicked his sleeve. He only felt a blur in front, and there was already a sheet of fluorescent paper in front of her. There was also a pen next to the paper. Of course, it was not a brush, but a hard pen unique to Milieu continent, which was much more convenient to use than a brush. It was just that for many examinees present, they felt extremely strange when they picked up this pen. It was true that these people had long been accustomed to drawing and writing with inscribed jade slip, so they had forgotten what it was like to hold a pen when they were young. He picked up the slender pen, turned a beautiful pen on the tip of her finger, and couldn't help smiling slightly. Originally, she only entered Miracle Healer Academy with a certain purpose, but now it seemed that this academy was much more interesting than she thought. The invigilator quickly announced the start of the written assessment. He activated the special paper on the desk with spiritual power and began to answer the questions. The whole examination room fell into silence. Everyone's attention was focused on the answer sheet. Caillou, who was behind Shiyu, his expression gradually changed from cold disgust to shock. The young man answered the question so fast, he almost wrote the answer after scanning the question. Compared to the examinees in other rooms who were thinking hard for the answer, Shiyu's expression was calm from beginning to end. The tip of the pen slid on the paper, making a rustling sound. After a while, she turned a page over. At this moment, Caillou couldn't sit still. He stood up, walked to Shiyu's side and looked down. He never believed that Shiyu's speed was really that fast. If she continued at her speed, she could easily finish 1,000 questions within 2 hours. But is this possible? Caillou's first round of entrance assessment was also a written test. With his top results during that year, he only completed more than 700 questions in the end. Chapter 1075. Depends on your luck. Even Lu Jishi, the highest record of Miracle Healer Academy's written assessment, only completed 862 questions in the end. How could this Shiyu complete 1/3 of the questions in just half an hour? But looking at his sloppy appearance, he must have answered blindly. Caillou snorted coldly, watching attentively, but the more he watched, the more frightened he was. Only a moment later, Shiyu had already answered a dozen more questions on the new page. And these questions were almost all correct. It was almost because Caillou himself wasn't certain about a few questions, but he somehow felt extremely reasonable about Shiyu's answers. He even felt like he was enlightened. Seeing Shiyu's swiftly writing pen and his delicate side face, Caillou was shocked. This young man, who is he? Caillou's behaviors naturally attracted the attention of the chief invigilator. He glanced at Caillou with inquiry and was about to walk over. Caillou panicked, shook his head quickly and sat down on his position. The invigilator didn't think too much. The assessment was still going on in an orderly manner. She, who was concentrating on the test paper, couldn't help but raise her eyebrows and peek at Caillou behind her thoughtfully. 2 hours passed quickly, and the test papers of all examinees would be recorded and handed in by the invigilators. After the information was entered into the examination papers, all examination papers would be sealed. It was no longer possible to see which examination paper was answered by which student. The sealed information would not be revealed until all examination papers had been marked. Caillou took Shiyu's examination paper and walked toward the chief invigilator. Another member of the Academy Student Council came out with him. Seeing him shaking his head impatiently, Caillou couldn't help but smile. "Zhang Chong, why do you look so unwilling?" Zhang Chong sighed and said with disgust, "The person I invigilated is really too disgusting. He kept showing off that he is a 4th-level doctor or someone from the royal family of the Haoyue kingdom. Pui with that pig brain? Even from the royal family?" As a result, he couldn't even answer the most basic medical questions. Caillou originally wanted to tease him a few more words when he heard the words, but suddenly his heart moved, and a faint light flashed in his eyes. When the two turned around the corner and were about to enter the room where the chief invigilator was, Caillou suddenly struck Zhang Chong unsteadily. For some reason, Zhang Chong felt his hands numb, and the test paper he was holding fell to the ground. Not only was his hand numb, but he also felt a little dizzy, wondering if he was agitated by the disgusting examinee. Caillou held him, handed him the test paper, and smiled. Be careful, if you lose the test paper, I will kick you out of the Academy Student Council. Zhang Chong laughed, took the exam paper, and walked into the room without much thought. Kai Yu gently squeezed the test paper in his hand behind him. His eyes looked gloomy. Shiyu, even if you are talented, people like you who are bad conduct and vicious are not qualified to stay in Miracle Healer Academy. Whether you can pass this first round of assessment in the end depends on your luck. Thinking of this, he sneered and quickly ran toward the main invigilator's room. The results of the first round of written assessment were still announced on the square where the spiritual root was tested yesterday. At this time, the scorching sun was in the sky, but 98 examinees and their companions were eagerly waiting on the square. None of them leave early. Chapter 1076. Who is Qin Jianqing? Bai Hu and Qing Wan also walked around in front of Heshi, looking up at the Miracle Healer Academy in the enchantment from time to time. Bai Hu said, "Why is it so slow? Isn't it just a written assessment result? It's already half a day." Young Master is more focused on practical skills, but this academy is examining the damn theories. Will Young Master somehow fail? Pooey pooey pooey. Your mouth is really filthy. Qing Wan glared at Bai Hu and said with a cold face, "Who is little? Young Master? How can he fail? I asked Miss just now, and Miss said that those questions are not difficult. It isn't a problem to pass the assessment. If Miss said so, she will definitely pass it." At this moment, a figure flashed in the mist, and the boy in green clothes who had appeared yesterday slowly walked out of the enchantment. Everyone became excited when they saw him. They held their breath and stared at his every move, waiting for him to announce the final result. The boy in green clothes was still cold as always. He waved his hand, and dense words appeared on the bulletin board in the square. For the Miracle Healer Academy entrance assessment, 48 people passed the first round. The above is the list of candidates who will advance to the next round. The content of the second round of assessment will be announced in an hour. Please stay here for a while. After finishing speaking, before everyone reacted, the boy in green clothes disappeared into the square in a blink of an eye. Only at this time, no one would bother about the boy in green clothes as they rushed toward the bulletin board. "Nomi, I actually failed. I thought I did a good job in the assessment." "Great, I actually passed the first round of assessment." If I knew that the entrance examination was a written assessment, I would learn from the elders in my family." There was a lot of discussion among the crowd. Some were happy and some were sad. However, after initially paying attention to their own results, some people's eyes looked at the first place in the written assessment. At this moment, someone finally discovered a shocking fact. "Oh my God! Look, the person who ranked first in this written test actually got 999 points. You're joking, how? It is really 999 points. How is this possible? Miracle Healer Academy's best record is only over 800 points. Who is so crazy? I can't even finish half of such difficult questions. Someone only got one wrong? Is there an entry error?" On the top of the bulletin board, first place 999 points Qin Jianqing were written then. Suddenly, the crowd burst into a commotion. Everyone was looking and shouting, "Qin Jianqing? Never heard of it. Who's this? How can he be so powerful?" Do you know that the content of the written assessment of the Miracle Healer Academy reflects not only the theoretical level, but also the comprehensive strength of the martial artists? Almost everyone who got good results in the written assessment passed the final assessment and entered the Miracle Healer Academy. Now they are even superior in the academy. I heard that Miracle Healer Academy's highest score holder so far is Lu Zhishi, the daughter of the president of the Doctors Association. She is even the president of the Academy Student Council. Her initial entrance examination score was only over 800 points. This Qin Jianqing is even better than Lu Zhishi? Unexpectedly, we would be able to participate in the assessment with such a powerful person, but who is this Qin Jianqing? Chapter 1077. Worship and Flattery. Among the crowd, a young man with a greasy face, triangular eyes and a slightly rounded figure stood in place with a look of astonishment. He stared at the bulletin board in front with his body trembling in excitement. Until the voice of the people looking for Chen Jianqing came into his ears, his manservant suddenly recollected his thought and shouted excitedly, "Chen Jianqing, it is our young master. That is our young master. Master, you actually got the first place in the assessment and broke the record of Miracle Healer Academy. You are really amazing. If you pass the assessment this time, Master must be so exhilarated." As soon as the manservant's words came out, everyone's eyes fell on the man. Many people saw that his appearance looked extremely ordinary. No one who participated in the Miracle Healer Academy assessment could be more than 30 years old, but he looked as if he was already in his 30s. Everyone couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Such an insignificant, even somewhat ugly appearance was really not worthy of the appearance of a legend. At least as beautiful as Lu Zixi or as handsome as Caillou. However, most people immediately walked toward Chen Jianqing with flattery faces. "Mr. Chen, I'm honored to meet you. It is a great honor to be able to participate in the assessment at the same time as Mr. Chen. Our Wang family runs the medicine hall in the Lin City. If Mr. Chen is looking for cooperation, come to me anytime." "Mr. Chen, I didn't expect you to be so excellent. Even your looks are good-looking. You can get such a good result in the assessment. You are truly the first person in Miracle Healer Academy. Does Mr. Chen have any knowledge to share with me so that I can pass the assessment tomorrow? It is said that the second assessment is likely to be conducted in teams. It would be great if I can team up with Mr. Chen. I would appreciate Mr. Chen's advice by then." Mr. Chen, I'm Wang Jie of the Immortal Crane Sect. In the subsequent assessments, I'm willing to follow Mr. Chen's orders." The disturbing noise came from all directions, and Chen Jianqing was dizzy by it. His shiny pink face was flushed. He still seemed to be in the clouds and mist. He couldn't figure out the situation. However, the eyes of those around him looking at him were so admiring and flattering, which greatly satisfied his vanity. Originally, he was still thinking, how could he get 999 points when he didn't answer all the questions? But with everyone's compliments one after another, he instantly put this suspicion behind him. Although Chen Jianqing claimed to be a royal family, in fact, he and the real royal family of Haoyue Kingdom had too far blood connection. None of the royal families of Haoyue Kingdom looked up at him. 10 years ago, Chen Jianqing worked hard in training and studying, and he finally became the 4th-ranked doctor. But after becoming a 4th-ranked doctor, he came into contact with the upper-class circles in the Doctors Association and Haoyue Kingdom, and he found that he was really inferior to a dog in the eyes of those who were superior. Moreover, he also realized that instead of working hard to cultivate and to study, it would be better to please the elders in the Doctors Association and exploit the civilians of Haoyue Kingdom, which would give him a chance to rise. Chen Jianqing, who had been trying to please others, never thought that this day would come. In the past, these people were those he wanted to flatter, but now. Chapter 1078. The score doesn't matter, looking at the gorgeous clothes and outstanding looks of the men and women around him. These people were either rich or noble. They had extraordinary backgrounds. There were even a few experts of the gold core stage early stage. But now, these people were all around him, flattering him and making him like a star. This feeling is really great. Chen Jianqing coughed and suppressed the excitement in his heart. He pretentiously waved to everyone. Everyone has overpraised, I'm not that good. However, I have some talents in medical skills since young. I initially thought I could get the full score, but I still got one wrong. This is such a shame. As soon as this remark came out, the crowd became even more excited. The people around Chen Jianqing couldn't wait to boast him to the sky. Not far away, in the direction where Heshi and others were, Qing Yuan stared at the results on the bulletin board, but she couldn't believe it at all. Why, young master, how could you only get 503 points? That's right, there were only 48 people who passed the first round of assessment, and Heshi was the last one who barely qualified. Qing Yuan was Heshi's hardcore fan. Since Heshi said that she thinks the exam is okay, then it must be okay. How could she end up with such a result? Gu Lufeng also didn't believe in the results of this assessment. In his mind, Xiyu was omnipotent. She could amaze everyone no matter what she did. Such results were completely inconsistent with Shiyu's style. Only Bai Hu breathed a sigh of relief. No matter what, at least it's a pass. I told you that theory is not the strength of young master. Fortunately, after passing the first level, it will definitely not be a problem to pass the next level. Qin Luan glared at Bai Hu fiercely. Filthy mouth. It's because of your nonsense. She asked Heshi with a move of her heart. Young master, did you do it deliberately to keep a low profile? Before Heshi had time to speak, Wei Chengyuan on the side also leaned over, put his arm on Heshi's shoulder and said with a smile, Shiyu, I also think that compared to the greasy pig's head over there, you seem to be able to pass the exam with such peerless results. Heshi pushed Wei Chengyuan away, glanced at the bulletin board and chuckled. Third place, 692 points, not bad. The second place in the written examination was Shui Yu Sek's eldest miss, Han Qianer, with a score of 708. Wei Chengyuan suddenly stood up straight and said with a smile, Hee hee, that's a must. When little Yuer enters the Miracle Healer Academy, brother can give you tutoring for what you don't understand. Gu Lufeng glanced at Wei Chengyuan with deep eyes. Who is this guy? His identity is mysterious, his strength is extraordinary, and he keeps getting close to Shiyu for some reason. He even calls her Little Yuer. This is really displeasing for some reason. Bai Hu was even more blunt. Who are you? Come to show off after getting a high score? Do you believe I will beat you? Qin Luan was still annoyed, clutching Heshi's sleeve and whispering, could it be that they made a mistake? Heshi couldn't help but smile and pat Qin Luan's hand. She watched the bulletin board with a flickering gaze, but she said indifferently, it doesn't matter whether the score is high. Just a pass will do. Qin Luan, why do you care so much? The two failed candidates on the side sneered immediately after hearing this. See, some people have a thicker skin than the city wall. Just admit that you get the last place. You even found yourself such a high-sounding reason. Pooey. Chapter 1079. Not interested, yeah, isn't it just the passing score? If I work a little bit harder, maybe the 48th place will be mine. I don't know if he is lucky or what, he actually dares to talk big. Hey, don't bother about this man. You see, so many people have surrounded Chen Jianqing, let's hurry over and get as many friendships as we can. Yes, no need to even talk to this trash. He will be eliminated in the second round of assessment. The crowd in the entire square surrounded Chen Jianqing, and everyone's face was filled with admiration and flattering smiles. If they could have a connection with such an excellent person, they might get some benefits in the Miracle Healer Academy, so no one was willing to fall behind. But in the square, of course, not everyone would go and flatter this first-place candidate, such as Wei Chengyuan, such as Heshi, and also such as the second-place Shui Yu Sek's Miss Han Qianer. However, Chen Jianqing, who was surrounded by the crowd, saw Han Qianer's beautiful silhouette, then he suddenly pushed away the crowd and walked quickly toward her. The fat and chubby hands stretched out toward Han Qianer. He spoke with excitement and arrogance in his tone. Miss Han, I'm Chen Jianqing. I was lucky to get the first place in the first round of assessment today. Do I have the honor to invite Miss Han to have a cup of tea? He looked up and down Han Qianer's perfect figure as well as her beautiful and cold face with fiery eyes full of wild ambition. I heard that the assessment tomorrow is likely to be a team performance. I still have some skills in medicine, so I want a high score that Miracle Healer Academy has never had before. If I can team up with the beautiful Miss Han, I believe my skills will surely make Miss Han pass the assessment smoothly. When Chen Jianqing saw Han Qianer on the first day of registration, he was deeply attracted by her cold, glamorous, ascetic temperament. When he was alone, he fantasized himself pressing on top of her body countless times, stripping off her clothes and ravaging her at will. Of course, with his identity, this kind of obscenity could only be fantasized in a dream. With his identity and ability, if he stood in front of Han Qianer, he would have to be beaten by her servants. However, the announcement of the first round of assessment results today gave him unlimited confidence. He was now a legend who broke the record of Miracle Healer Academy. Many people couldn't wait to flatter him and build a rapport with him. Even if it was the Shui Yu Sek's eldest miss, she would naturally fall for his talent. Thinking of this, Chen Jianqing's smile became even more confident. Speaking of which, Miss Han's first round of assessment is also good, only more than 200 points lower than mine. Compared with other people, Miss Han is also considered smart. However, if we can discuss together, I believe I can give pointers that can help Miss Han grow even more. Chen Jianqing was really proud of the decent and boastful words he said. He raised his chin arrogantly, waiting for Han Qianer to thank him happily. However, Han Qianer turned her head, glanced at him with a blank and cold expression and said with a monotone, "Not interested." Chapter 1080. Is he stupid? Just two simple words, as if she didn't even want to talk another word with him, then she left with her servant. Chen Jianqing looked at Han Qianer leaving. He was taken aback for a moment, then his face was suddenly distorted. The taste of being flattered by everyone made him feel so ecstatic that he almost forgot what it was like to try to please others in the first place. He wanted to curse Han Qianer for not being sensible, but Han Qianer's identity was really noble. He couldn't afford to offend her, so he could only grit his teeth and held it back. Suddenly, Chen Jianqing turned and saw Shi Yu and the others, standing leisurely and calmly one by one. He saw that there was no admiration in their eyes, and they didn't try hard to flatter him like others. Chen Jianqing was immediately infuriated. Never mind if Han Qianer ignored me, Shi Yu, a foundation establishment stage, dares to be so arrogant, not putting me in his eyes? Isn't this looking down on me? Hey kid! Chen Jianqing took a few steps forward, staring at Heshi coldly with triangular eyes. Are you Shi Yu who is good at pill refining? Heshi raised her eyebrows and said casually, Yes, so what? Chen Jianqing raised his chin and said, I heard that the medicinal pills in Shengde Hall are very good. I just lack a few medicinal pills these days. How about you give me hundreds of best quality pills? Of course, I will remember your kindness to me. I will give you indispensable benefits in the future. Heshi sneered, but before she could speak, Gu Lufeng had already taken a step forward and smiled in an official manner. I'm sorry, Shengde Hall has regulations. Regardless of whether they are poor or rich and their strength is high or low, everyone needs to book in advance to buy medicinal pills. We don't allow credit too. If you want to buy medicinal pills, go to the nearest, Wanyuan city, to make an appointment. Chen Jianqing's face turned grim after hearing Gu Liufeng's words. However, he didn't look at Gu Lufeng, but he stared at Shi Yu coldly with triangular eyes. Although the cultivation of Gu Lufeng by Hu and others seemed to be higher, he knew at first sight that Shi Yu was in charge. Chen Jianqing said sinisterly, Shi Yu, what do you mean? Everyone is the examinee taking part in the same assessment. Don't you even want to give this little face? Do you know that the assessment is not over yet? With your own strength, you will die miserably in the second assessment? Just for these little medicinal pills, you don't even want your life. If you are smart, I don't mind helping you. Heshi slowly smiled, and her voice was louder and clearer, not interested. As soon as she said this, Chen Jianqing's face suddenly turned into a pig liver color. He was so angry that he trembled, and he looked at Heshi with hateful eyes. Heshi's answer was simple, and it was the same answer as Han Qianer's. Is he shaming me in public? Is this brat really tired of living? The crowd also burst into discussions. Is this Shi Yu stupid? Such a good chance to curry favor with the first place, he just let it go like that? Maybe he doesn't even have the authority of Shengde Hall's best quality pills, so he dares not agree to it casually at this moment. If he can't sell it, then just don't sell. Just suffer a little loss. He even offended Mr. Chen. I think he will be very miserable in the second round of assessment. Chapter 1081. Inexplicable irritability. Some people rushed to Chen Jianqing, handed him a few bottles of medicinal pills and said flatteringly, Mr. Chen, don't be angry. This kid is insensible, why should you be bothered by him? These are the best medicinal pills sold by my medicine hall. I failed the assessment this time, so they are useless for me. I'll give them all to Mr. Chen, hoping to have a good bond with you. Chen Jianqing heard the people pleasing around him and ridiculing Heshi, and the anger in his heart disappeared a little. He took the medicinal pills handed over by others and kept them in the storage ring before he smiled coldly at Heshi. Since you are so arrogant, then never mind. But don't you blame me for not reminding you, the second round of Miracle Healer Academy's assessment is not that simple. Although you passed the first round of written assessment by luck, you are just at the mere foundation establishment stage. Just pray for yourself in the following assessment. Heshi smiled faintly, turned around and sat down at random, leaning on the stone bench and closing her eyes to rest. Although Bai Hu, Gu Lufeng and others hated Chen Jianqing, Miracle Healer Academy stipulates that all candidates participating in the selection were protected by the academy. They dared not try to beat up others casually, so as not to cause trouble to Heshi. Wei Qingyuan glanced at Heshi, then at Chen Jianqing, who looked wretched and smug, and he smiled slowly. The dimples on his face were looming. An hour passed in a flash. Soon, the enchantment flickered and the boy in green clothes slowly walked out. Only this time, the boy in green clothes did not come out alone, but he was followed by an elder. This elder was the one who presided over the spiritual root assessment the day before yesterday, and behind this elder was Kai Yu, the vice president of the Academy Student Council. Kai Yu glanced at everyone present, especially Chen Jianqing, with an arrogant look, and he finally looked at Shiyu with some inexplicable complexity. He had seen what happened on the square just now in the Academy enchantment, including Chen Jianqing's arrogance and Shiyu's silence. Shiyu really doesn't know that his grades were exchanged? Impossible? He was so confident when he answered the questions. But if he knows, why doesn't Shiyu speak up or protest? This Chen Jianqing, as Zhang Chong said, is really disgusting. But such a person, because of me, is now the top of the written assessment. An inexplicable irritability surged in Kai Yu's heart. He immediately shook his head to drive out the excess emotions. At this moment, the square was silent and everyone looked at the elder. He spoke with a low voice slowly. My surname is Qin, you can call me Elder Qin. I believe everyone present knows me. We all met when screening the spiritual root qualifications on the first day. Now, you can stay because I wrote your names onto the lists. When Elder Qin said this, the nervous examinees underneath suddenly relaxed a lot. Their eyes looking at Elder Qin became more cordial. Elder Qin smiled slightly and continued, I believe many people have already guessed the content of the second assessment. We will proceed in groups. 48 people are divided into 8 groups, each with 6 people. The content of the assessment will not be announced now. By tomorrow noon, there will be people bringing you to the assessment venue. Chapter 1082, Curse to Everyone and Himself. After hearing Elder Qin's words, the candidates below became more confident as they looked at each other. The content of the Miracle Healer Academy's assessment would change every year, but one thing wouldn't change was that there would inevitably be a round of assessments that needed to be conducted in groups. Therefore, before these candidates came to participate in the assessment, many of them had already made good connections with several families and sects to form a team so as to increase their chance of passing the assessment. But then, Elder Qin's words broke their beautiful illusions. However, the difference between this year and previous years is that the grouping will be determined through a draw lot. What? No way! As soon as this remark came out, the square suddenly burst into commotion. Those who had already decided to form a team, especially those candidates who were planning to pass the assessment, were disheartened. Grouping through draw lot meant there was a high chance of people burdening the group. Of course, there were also people who were delighted. Those who were not strong and did not have the support of the family or sect behind them, originally thought that they could only work alone in the second round of assessment, but the decision of drawing lots was equivalent to giving them a high chance of relying on the better candidates. The chance for them to pass the assessment was naturally greater. How could they not be happy? However, after the chatters, everyone's eyes couldn't help but fall on Shiyu. Everyone's eyes were full of disgust and contempt. They couldn't wait to kick this guy who was only at the foundation establishment stage from the list of passing the assessment. Then someone said, whoever groups with Shiyu really has extremely bad luck. After that, There was a burst of lively discussion in the crowd. How? My family has talked to Zhu Jingwei before to let him assist me this time. He has the Thunder spiritual root and is at the Gold Core stage, which is a strong combat power. With him, I have higher chance of being selected. Now, I'm definitely hopeless. Yeah. In order for me to team up with the strong, my family also paid a lot of magic weapons and medicinal pills. Now those are all in vain. But no matter who you get, it isn't so hopeless as getting Shiyu in your team, right? With him, I guess the Gold Core stage will be dragged to death. This kind of person is really shameless. He obviously doesn't have enough strength, but he still wanted to participate in the assessment. He can't pass it, but he still wants to drag down the others. Doesn't he feel embarrassed? He just scored 503 points on the written assessment. Why can't he get wrong for a few more points? Just let him be eliminated in the first round. Now, he is just a curse to everyone and himself. Keep your voice down, be careful that he hears it. So what if he hears it? Could he still beat me? He dares? From the beginning of complaining about the draw lot rules to almost everyone expressed their disgust on Heshi. If she had a bad psychological quality, she would have quit, but she just stood there listening to the boy in green clothes introducing the cautions and taboos when participating in the group assessment. The boy in green clothes and Elder Qin were more calm, as if they hadn't heard the comments from the people below at all. They just announced the various rules. During the assessment, all the invigilators will watch your every move through the 9-turn recording stone. In the end, your assessment results in the second level will be comprehensively considered based on both team and individual performance. Chapter 1083. Who are they? Personal items are not allowed, including medicinal pills, magic weapons, spiritual pets, and storage devices. Before the assessment, the college will uniformly distribute basic materials to ensure the fairness of the assessment. These regulations were similar to those of the assessments in previous years. Many candidates did not listen carefully, but they stared at Heshi hatefully. The words from their mouth was getting more and more harsh. Wei Chengyuan's original attitude was that it had nothing to do with him, but he was a little furious. Bai Hu and the others were fortunate that at the beginning of the draw lot, the non-related crowds were all driven out of the square, otherwise they would really give them a painful lesson after hearing those remarks. Wei Chengyuan glanced coldly at the people who pointed at Heshi, and the pressure of Gold Core stage on him was released. Soon, those with insufficient cultivation were suppressed and dare not speak. Their eyes watching Heshi were still full of contempt. Wei Chengyuan leaned close to Heshi and said, "Shiyu, they said those words to you, you really don't care?" Heshi smiled nonchalantly, and she slowly said, "Why should I care for these nobodies?" Wei Chengyuan was taken aback for a moment, then he couldn't help laughing out loud. He really found this young man more and more interesting. After the boy in green clothes finished the announcement, the draw lot soon began. Heshi got the 6th group, while Wei Chengyuan was in the 1st group. Wei Chengyuan regretfully said, "If only I could be with you, with me protecting you, let's see if those guys dare to say more." Heshi smiled indifferently, but she still said, "Thank you." Although Wei Chengyuan's identity was a mystery and his purpose was a mystery, Heshi couldn't feel any malice from him. Heshi still knew how to appreciate other people's kindness. Holding the inscribed jade slip with her grouping information, Heshi walked slowly to the 6th group. In order to make the next day's assessment faster, after the draw, the members of each team must get to know each other. When Heshi walked over, some people said delightedly, "Great, this burden is not in our group. I'm really afraid that the results of our entire group will be affected by him." Until Heshi walked until the 6th group, the other members of the other groups were relieved. They were looking at the members of the 6th group with eyes full of sympathy and gloat. Especially when they saw Chen Jianxing, who was the 1st in the written assessment, and Han Qianer, who was the 2nd in the 6th group, many people were even more delighted. In this way, the final results of Chen Jianxing and Han Qianer would be lowered, and the chance of other groups getting better results would be greatly increased. Contrary to the other groups of candidates, when the members of the 6th group saw Heshi standing in their team, their faces suddenly turned grim. A pretty-looking woman even took a step forward and said gloomily, "Are you sure you really got the sixth group? It's not because we have Mr. Chen and Miss Han, so you deliberately want to take advantage of it?" This woman seemed to be about 26 years old, and her name was Chen Xiaoying. Among all the members of the sixth group, except for Heshi who had the lowest cultivation base, she was only at the intermediate stage of the condensation period. In addition to Han Qianer of the gold core stage and Chen Jianqing of the condensation period later stage, there were also Wang Hai and Yang Hailong of the condensation period later stage. Although the written assessment scores of Wang Hai and Yang Hailong were not as high as those of Chen Jianqing and Han Qianer, they were still in the middle upper rank. Chapter 1084. Don't count me, so the strength of this group of them comprehensively seemed to be very strong. Therefore, when Chen Xiaoying just found out that she got the sixth group, she secretly rejoiced in her mind. All the candidates in the sixth group were better than her. Except for Han Qianer, they were all men. She would definitely be taken care of during the assessment. Chen Xiaoying was showing great courtesy to several men in the team. When she saw Shiyu walking over, she felt very terrible. She seemed to hear the sound of her dreams collapsing. Even if Han Qianer and Chen Jianqing were more powerful, with Shiyu who was only at the foundation establishment stage, how could they have the spare effort to help her? When Heshi activated the information in the inscribed jade slip, everyone confirmed that she had indeed drawn the sixth group. Everyone's face looked very ugly. The one-minded Wang Hai said straightforwardly, "Shiyu, you may not know it. The second round of the Miracle Healer Academy's entrance assessment is often accompanied by casualties. We will not have the time to protect you. I think you should quit here, lest you die in there at a young age." Yang Hailong also said unceremoniously, "You will have more opportunities in the future, so why stay and be a burden to us?" Chen Xiaoying even wiped her tears and looked at Heshi pleadingly, "Shiyu, I'm 28 years old this year. This is my closest and last chance to Miracle Healer Academy. Can you please help me? Just quite the assessment, please? You are only 17 years this year. You can pass the assessment again next year." Several people babbled, all advising Heshi to quit the second round of assessment. Some even threatened her in the end. Chen Jianqing had long been displeased with Heshi. He squinted at Heshi fiercely. "This is the unanimous decision of all of our sixth group. If you are smart, quit now. Otherwise, we will definitely teach you a good lesson during the assessment." With that said, Chen Jianqing glanced at the people around him and said triumphantly, "Don't you guys think so?" Chen Xiaoying, Wang Hai and Yang Hailong nodded again and again. Chen Jianqing's gaze fell on Han Qianer, and he put up an instinctive pleasing smile on his face. "Miss Han, what do you mean?" Han Qianer glanced at Heshi, and she said coldly, "Whatever dirty things you guys want to do, don't count me in." When Chen Jianqing and others heard this, their expressions were ugly. Chen Jianqing wanted to get angry, but he managed to endure it and coughed in a low voice. "Miss Han, haven't you figured it out yet? Let Shiyu stay in the team, he will only drag us down. Never mind if I'm not the top one, but Miss Han and the others may not even pass the assessment. Aren't Miss Han afraid of this?" Han Qianer's complexion remained unchanged. She still had a cool and beautiful face. "As far as I know, the top one of the freshman assessment 5 years ago was Vice President Kai Yu. At that time, his written assessment was less than 700 points, but he led his group members who were all condensation period early stage to get excellent results in the group assessment. Finally, they got the position of top one. Since Mr. Chen's written assessment scores are so much higher than Kai Yu's, it must not be a problem to lead one foundation establishment stage or even several foundation establishment stages, right?" Han Qianer's words made Chen Jianqing's complexion stiff. He couldn't say what he had originally planned to say. Chapter 1085. Unimportant member. At this time, Heshi's gaze also happened to fall on Han Qianer. Han Qianer nodded slightly at her. Her expression was cold, but her brows were more amiable than when she was talking to Chen Jianqing. Chen Jianqing's blood rushed up suddenly, thinking that Han Qianer had fallen in love with Shiyu, so she spoke up for him. his gaze looking at Heshi suddenly was like a poisonous arrow, which would kill her at any time. Chen Qiaoying and Yang Hailong were still unwilling, and they still wanted to threaten Heshi to quit. Suddenly, Wei Chengyuan appeared from nowhere and sneered, "If you don't have strength, just quit the assessment yourself. You don't have enough ability, but you persuade others to quit. What is this reasoning?" Wei Chengyuan's group members also laughed. "That's right. Your group has the first place and the second place in the written assessment, but you can't even tolerate a foundation establishment stage? How good are you to threaten others to quit withdraw from the assessment?" Since Chen Jianqing and his group were dragged down, the chance of the others passing the assessment would increase. They were of course happy to see it. The faces of Chen Jianqing and others were extremely ugly, but they didn't dare to say anything more facing the crowd. They gave Heshi a stern look and turned away. The most luxurious hotel in Miracle Healer City was Wangyue Pavilion, while the most expensive restaurant was Xianlu House. At this time, Chen Jianqing, Wang Hai, Yang Hailong and Chen Qiaoying were gathering in Xianlu House, venting their depression while eating. When Chen Jianqing thought of what Han Qianer had said and her attitude toward Shiyu, he felt an anger boiling in his heart. Chen Qiaoying was keen in observing, and she hurriedly said something to please him. "Brother Chen, that Shiyu is insensible. When the assessment starts, we can just ignore him. We must not let the person who is destined to fail to affect Brother Chen's results." Wang Hai and Yang Hailong went along with her. They kept flattering Chen Jianqing overtly and secretly, and Chen Jianqing finally felt a lot better. Suddenly, Yang Hailong pointed at the door and whispered, "Brother Chen, isn't that your invigilator Zhang Chong?" After hearing this, everyone looked over. Sure enough, Zhang Chong came in with a few young martial artists. Zhang Chong frowned and looked gloomy. When he saw Chen Jianqing not far away, his expression became even more gloomy. Yang Hailong said, "Brother Chen, don't you go up and greet him?" Although the score of each candidate depended on the results of the assessment, the invigilator's evaluation was also considered. Unless they weren't stupid, they would try their best to please their invigilators. Who knew that Chen Jianqing was full of sarcasm when he heard this? He sneered, "What are you kidding? I'm the top one in the written assessment. It is very likely that the top one of this year's freshman is me. Who is this Zhang Chong? Isn't he just an unimportant member of the Academy Student Council? Let me greet him? Can he take it?" Chen Qiaoying immediately smiled and said, "That's right. Brother Chen scored 999 points in the written assessment, breaking the Academy record. Even the president of the Academy Student Council, Lu Jishi, can only score more than 800 points. How can this Zhang Chong be compared with Brother Chen? After Brother Chen enters the Academy, he will become the president of the Academy Student Council sooner or later. If Zhang Chong is smart, he should come over and greet Brother Chen." Yang Hailong and Wang Hai looked at each other. Although they felt that it was not appropriate to do this, they still smiled without speaking. Chapter 1086. Intolerable, Chen Jianqing was ecstatic by Chen Qiaoying's flatter. He had long been displeased to Zhang Chong, who looked down on him. Now I have become the top. Zhang Chong is just a member of the Academy Student Council. When I'm admitted, I will definitely be on top of him." Chen Jianqing and Chen Qiaoying said those slandering words without lowering their voice at all. Zhang Chong naturally heard it too, and his already gloomy expression was so dark that water could even be condensed from it. When he knew that Chen Jianqing's written test score was the first, and it was 999, Zhang Chong knew something was wrong. He was Chen Jianqing's examiner. He knew better than anyone that how many questions he had answered on the test paper. Even if Chen Jianqing answered all the questions correctly, a person who only filled out more than 700 answers in total got a score of 999 in the end. Wasn't this absurd? Zhang Chong almost immediately remembered Kai Yu bumping into him before he was about to seal the test paper. If anything could go wrong, it must be that time. As soon as Zhang Chong realized this possibility, he felt terrible. The students of their Miracle Healer Academy were also graded every year. Those with high grades would be promoted each year, low grades would be demoted, some would even be expelled from Miracle Healer Academy. As a member of the Academy Student Council, they were responsible for the invigilation of the entrance assessment and they could get many scores. However, if someone found out that they had made such a mistake, not to mention that they would not get the score at that time, their score would even be deducted. If it was only me, then never mind. However, it was related to Caillou as well. If I reported this matter, I would cause the vice president to be criticized by the academy and get his scores deducted. Fortunately, Chen Jianqing's score just passed the passing line. In any case, the kid named Shiyu suffered a loss, but he also entered the second round, which is not too bad. So Zhang Chong originally planned to put this matter in his heart forever. But after listening to Chen Jianqing's arrogant words today, his sanity was almost gone. Such a scumbag, because of my own mistakes, I let him be full of himself. Seriously, this is really intolerable. Zhang Chong's face was flushed red. He greeted his classmates, then he walked toward Chen Jianqing's table and said coldly, "Come with me." Chen Jianqing still looked arrogant and proud. He raised his eyebrows at Chen Xiaoying and Yang Hailong. His expression seemed to say, "Look, I guessed it right, even if it is an invigilator, he has to come to curry me." However, he said unceremoniously, "Is there something to do with me? I'm very busy now. If you have something, just say it here." Zhang Chong sneered, staring at Chen Jianqing and whispered, "Oh? Really? Are you sure you want me to say it here? Actually, there is nothing wrong. I just want to talk to you about your grades." I remember. Before he finished speaking, Chen Jianqing's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly stood up and intercepted Zhang Chong's words. His arrogant and domineering face turned pale. His eyes flashed with panic. He kept saying, "Brother Zhang, I think we should go outside and talk." Zhang Chong sneered with eyes full of contempt, but he didn't say any more. Instead, he turned and left the Xianlu house. Only Chen Xiaoying, Yang Hailong, and Wang Hai looked at each other with doubts. Chapter 1087. Warning, Chen Jianqing hurriedly pulled Zhang Chong to a secluded corner. After making sure that there was no one around, he said with a face full of suspicion, "Brother Zhang, what did you mean by that? Don't you know what it means?" Zhang Chong looked at him mockingly. "Chen Jianqing, you are really shameless. Do you really think you can get a high score of 999? Chen Jianqing's face turned green, and he straightened his neck and said, "Zhang Chong, what do you mean by this? How can I get high scores? Even if you keep looking down on me, you can't slander me like that." Zhang Chong laughed loudly and looked at Chen Jianqing as if he was looking at an idiot. "Chen Jianqing, have you forgotten? When you took the exam, I was behind you, looking at you scratching your head anxiously. You really think you can get the score of 999? What's more, if I remember correctly, the last answer you filled is just about 700, right?" Chen Jianqing opened his mouth in shock. He wanted to refute, but the guilty conscience and panic had completely suppressed his momentum. Because the invigilator only ensured that candidates did not cheat in the written assessment, Chen Jianqing had always thought that Zhang Chong did not notice how many questions he finished. Zhang Chong is actually watching over me throughout the entire assessment, just waiting for me to make a mistake. Zhang Chong said coldly, "Chen Jianqing, do you want to know how your grades came from?" Chen Jianqing was taken aback, and he quickly raised his head. How did it come?" Zhang Chong sneered. "How do you think you came here? Do you really think you got it on your own? Tell you the truth, your test paper was accidentally exchanged with someone else. The score of 999 is not your score at all. It's not you Chen Jianqing who breaks the record." Chen Jianqing shivered, and he almost instinctively blurted out, Who did I exchange with?" Zhang Chong glanced at him with dark and cold eyes before slowly saying, "Your original score should be 503 points. Just past the passing line, and you are the last among the 48 people. Who do you think you exchanged with?" Chen Jianqing widened his mouth in horror. The original green face turned even paler. 503 points, besides Shiyu who got last and was laughed at by everyone, who else would it be? However, Shiyu actually scored 999 points on the assessment. He is just at the foundation establishment stage. How could it be possible? The ridicule and warning in Zhang Chong's eyes became more intense. He whispered, Chen Jianqing, if you understand your limit, you should behave yourself. Otherwise, if Shiyu is anxious and asks to check the test paper, then your good days are over. After speaking, no matter what Chen Jianqing's reaction was, Zhang Chong quickly turned and left. Chen Jianqing stood there blankly. His body was trembling as the evening breeze blew. He remembered that since the results were announced, he kept ridiculing Shiyu as trash to show his genius. Although Shiyu didn't say anything, he could be hating me. If Shiyu really goes to check the test paper, wouldn't I, Chen Jianqing, be over? I don't want to be over like that. I don't want to lose everything that I have now, this kind of feeling where everyone flatters me, I must not lose it. Chen Jianqing thought of his face distorted for a while, then the panic in his mind was gradually replaced by the vicious killing intent. Chapter 1088. Long live Mom. Zhang Chongming knew the truth, but he didn't report it because he is afraid of taking the risk of messing up the grades. Therefore, the only hidden danger I face now is Shiyu. So what if Shiyu's written assessment scores 999 points? After all, he is just at the foundation establishment stage. The group assessment of the Miracle Healer Academy has the most casualties. Even if Shiyu dies, no one would care about it. The muscles on Chen Jianqing's face twitched, and a sinister smile slowly appeared. At this moment, he suddenly began to rejoice that he and Shiyu were in the same group. Isn't this more convenient to get rid of this hidden danger? At the next day, all the candidates gathered in the square on time. It was just that today's square was very different from yesterday. Because 8 teleportation arrays were inscribed on the square. Each teleportation array was glowing with shining brilliance at this time. The boy in green clothes stood next to the teleportation array and said, 8 groups correspond to 8 teleportation arrays, and the teleportation array will send you to the designated trial site. But before entering the teleportation array, please hand out all medicinal pills, weapons and storage equipment and put on the clothes specially prepared by our Miracle Healer Academy for you. Many martial artists who had participated in the assessment had known this rule before, so they quickly picked up clothes from the boy in green clothes and went into the hut to change. Heshi was the last to go in and change clothes. The trial costume of the Miracle Healer Academy was a blue and white suit. After Heshi put it on, she looked even more elegant and handsome. Xiao Li in the void couldn't help but blush and said, Miss, if you are really a man, all the women of the Miluo continent will be fascinated by you. Little Egg was nibbling on the stock food prepared by Heshi in the void, so he said vaguely, if Mom is a woman, she will fascinate men from all over the continent. If she is a man, she will fascinate women from all over the continent. Long live Mom. Eat your stuff. Heshi rebuked in her mind, then she sternly said, I can't bring a spiritual pet during the trial, so you all stay in the void afterward. No matter what happens, don't come out. Do you hear me? The little guys all nodded obediently. Although they loved to play, they still had a clear sense of priority. As for whether the Sumeru Ring's void and the little ones would be discovered by the people of Miracle Healer Academy, Heshi had never worried about it. Walking out of the hut, everyone couldn't help but look at Heshi. Even Chen Xiaoying, who looked down on Shiyu the most, couldn't help but flush in her face. In fact, Shiyu's appearance was too perfect, too touching. Only Chen Jianqing's face turned gloomy. The surprise in his mind was soon replaced by the hatred and killing intent brought by panic. Seeing that everyone had changed their clothes, the boy in green clothes waved his hand gently. Soon, 48 identical trays appeared in the square. In the trays were placed a low-level storage bag, a set of clothes without any defensibility, a 4th-grade flying sword, a bottle of 4 medicinal pills and an ordinary pill refining furnace. The boy in green clothes said solemnly, this is all the equipment you can carry for this trial. If anyone is found to bring weapons and medicinal pills secretly, you will be forever banned from the Academy's entrance assessment. Everyone hurriedly took their own trays and put their things in storage bags one after another. Chapter 1089. Elusive forest. The boy in green clothes continued, "You enter the teleportation array first. I will elaborate on the specific trial rules with you in the secret realm." The light of the teleportation array flashed, and soon the entire square was empty. At this time, a building of Miracle Healer Academy was filled with 48 members of the Academy Student Council and a few elders of the nascent soul stage. In front of these members, a translucent crystal stone emitting a faint blue light was placed. These crystal stones were the 9-turn recording stones, which was always called Sky-priced recording talisman. The 9-turn recording stone was divided into the child stone and the mother stone. The mother stone could see the sights of hundreds or even thousands of miles around the location of the child stone. The inscribed jade slip carried by the candidates contained the ingredient of the child stone. Therefore, the members of the Academy Student Council only released their divine sense into the 9-turn recording stone to see the actions and behaviors of their examinee at any time. In front of the elders of nascent soul stage, there was a 9-turn recording stone that was 100 times larger than the Academy Student Council's members. The recording stone was shining with dazzling light, and a huge image was projected in front of them. The image showed the scene in the entire secret realm. The elders could switch through divine sense to fix the image at a certain position in the secret realm. As the 48 examinees landed at the different locations in the secret realm one by one through the teleportation array, the second round of assessment was officially started. After Heshi experienced the dizziness of space teleportation, what she saw, at first sight, was the beautiful scenery. At this moment, all of them were standing by a beautiful blue lake. The lake was clear, reflecting the undulating mountains, blue sky and white clouds, and the sun shimmering on the lake. The scene made people feel refreshed. Heshi looked up at the sun high in the sky, and she couldn't help but wonder. Are they still within the scope of Miracle Healer Academy? If they are really still in Miracle Healer Academy, then the strength of this academy is too strong. At a glance, there is no end to this secret realm at all, but the blue sky, white clouds and sun are all real, which means that we are not in the virtual space but a real world. The area of Miracle Healer Academy itself is only that large, but it has to accommodate such a large secret realm. How powerful is the time and space spell of the person who opens this realm? Heshi was exclaiming when the familiar voice of the boy in green clothes suddenly came from high in the sky. The place where you are now is Elusive Forest, one of the 3 secret realms of Miracle Healer Academy. Your goal is to survive as a team in the Elusive Forest for 10 days. In these 10 days, every time the team loses one person, everyone's score will be deducted accordingly. If the team has less than 2 people, the team will be eliminated. In addition to the survival goal, you can also hunt and kill spiritual beasts and collect spiritual grass in Elusive Forest. All the rare materials in Elusive Forest that you bring out from the secret realm can be treated as a bonus point for your performance. Each of you has your own corresponding inscribed jade slip in your hand. If you can't survive in Elusive Forest, you can crush the inscribed jade slip and your invigilator will enter the secret realm and take you away safely. Breaking the inscribed jade slip collar is equivalent to giving up the assessment. The team members will also be deducted points. Well, please keep the rules in mind and let the second round of assessment start. Chapter 1090. Walk our own way. As soon as the boy in green clothes finished speaking, the whole secret realm returned to normal. Heshi instinctively channeled her spiritual power first, wanting to feel the strong spirit in this elusive forest. However, as soon as the spiritual power cycled in her body, she felt something was wrong. At this moment, their teammate Wang Hai also called out, "Why do I feel that I can't absorb much spiritual power?" With Wang Hai's call, everyone immediately tried to channel their spiritual power. Their faces suddenly became very ugly. Chen Xiaoying bit her lower lip and said, "The team assessment I participated in the year before last was also in the secret realm, but there was no such situation. It seems that the difficulty of this year's assessment has been increased." Wang Hai frowned and said, "Miracle Healer Academy gave us only 4 spiritual healing pills. It is fine to travel in the secret realm casually, But if we encounter a magical beast, we have to replenish spiritual power after the battle. However, we can only absorb that little spiritual power now. For spiritual healing pills are not enough at all. The faces of several people had become extremely gloomy. This was not only related to the quality of the assessment results. There were dangerous traps and magical beasts everywhere in this secret realm. If there was no way to replenish the spiritual power, it would be very dangerous. Chen Jianqing rolled his eyes and suddenly smiled and said, "Don't worry, the Academy not only gave us 4 spirit healing pills, but they also gave us a pill refining furnace, right? As long as we find enough spirit plants, I will refine the spirit healing pill for you." When Chen Jianqing said this, Chen Qiaoying and others were overjoyed and flattered Chen Jianqing. Chen Jianqing was proud, but Han Qianer was still standing aside coldly. Her eyes were full of impatience. She didn't even mean to come over to please him. His soaring vanity was like a balloon that was punctured by someone. His face turned very ugly. When Chen Jianqing looked back at Shiyu, he became even more infuriated. The kid has already walked in the direction of the dense forest by himself. He didn't even tell us. His face immediately turned gloomy as he shouted angrily, "Shiyu, what are you doing? Did we agree to go in that direction? Do you have a sense of teamwork?" Hashi stopped, turned around and looked at him coldly. "Who said I want to work with you guys? Don't you think I'm getting in your way?" "Just right, I also think you guys are getting in my way, so we go our own way. We won't interfere with anyone." As soon as these words came out, Chen Jianqing and the others opened their eyes wide. Even Han Qianer looked at her in surprise. In addition to being surprised, Chen Jianqing also flashed a trace of guilty conscience and panic. Did Shiyu figure out my plan? So, he wants to run away from the team. But soon, Chen Jianqing forgot the idea, and he solemnly said, "What do you mean by this? Don't forget that you are only at the foundation establishment stage. You can't even fight a rank 3 magical beast. If you die or quit the assessment, our points will be deducted." Chen Jianqing's words immediately made Chen Qiaoying and others agitated. In fact, they didn't care about the life and death of Shiyu, but Shiyu as a useless low-rank martial artist should beg them for help. Her arrogant attitude really triggered them. Especially Chen Qiaoying, for so many assessments, she walked all the way by currying others, so she was particularly displeased with Shiyu's stubbornness. Chapter 1091. Stop messing with me. She stepped forward, grabbed Hashi, and said coldly, "If you want to go, hand in the storage bag and medicinal pills given by the Academy. These are our team resources, not yours." Chen Jianqing and others agreed upon hearing the words. Wang Hai even sneered, "If you want to die, we won't stop you, but we must bring back the things that belong to our team. You don't want to pass the assessment, but we want." Heshi's gaze swept across everyone's faces, and she finally stopped at Chen Qiaoying. Suddenly, her slender and white jade-like hand clasped Chen Qiaoying's wrist and pulled it lightly. Chen Qiaoying let out a weeping cry, staring at the young man in disbelief. Heshi's expression was still calm as always. When she flipped her wrist lightly, Chen Qiaoying's face was getting more and more ugly. She kept screaming, and her fingers that originally held Heshi naturally loosened. Heshi shrugged Chen Qiaoying's hand, making her roll embarrassedly on the ground. This scene stunned everyone present. Even Han Qianer looked at Heshi with a complicated gaze. When Chen Qiaoying sat up from the ground, her nose and forehead were bleeding and her face was bruised. Her original pretty face now looked like a color palette. She stared at Heshi fiercely, but her body was shaking slightly. The moment she was caught, she obviously wanted to channel her spiritual power, but for some reason her blood and spiritual power seemed to be frozen. The young man, who was only at the foundation establishment stage, gave her a powerful and terrible sense of oppression. She dared not to act rashly. Heshi looked condescendingly at Chen Qiaoying, then she glanced at Chen Jianqing and the others and said with a sneer, "You should feel fortunate that you are in the secret realm and we are in a team. Killing you all will only deduct my points. However, you better stop messing with me, otherwise, I can't guarantee what I will do." After speaking, she didn't stay anymore. She turned around and left quickly. Chen Jianqing and others stayed were all in a daze. Until Heshi's aura completely disappeared, they suddenly came back to their senses. They looked at each other with ugly faces. Heshi felt a lot more relaxed after leaving the team. There were not many precious spiritual plants in this elusive forest. Heshi searched for a whole day and only harvested a few wind spirit rabbits and a few rank 1 herbs. The spiritual plant and magical beast must be at least rank 2 in order to get points, and the points provided by the rank 2 magical beast was very low. So these wind spirit rabbits and herbs were completely useless. But Heshi didn't dislike them. She temporarily set up a stove, threw a fireball, and cooked the wind spirit rabbit to fill her stomach. As for the rank 1 spiritual grass, she combined it with other common plants in the elusive forest to make various poisons and antidotes. There were not many spiritual plants in this elusive forest, but there were many common plants that she was familiar with in her previous life. Heshi collected them without hesitation, making Caillou, who was watching her, be puzzled for a while. He didn't understand why did this young man pick those useless grass and trees. After eating full and resting for a whole night, Heshi felt refreshed. They are tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.